Welcome YWCA Australia members. It's a pleasure and an honour to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for joining our 2022 Annual General Meeting. My name is Apurva Kalyanpur and I am a YWCA Australia member, young woman and board director. And today I will be your MC. Closed captions are also available by using the controls at the bottom of your screen should you wish to use them. I am on Wiradjuri lands today. It's not just respectful, but vital that we acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which we work, live, and play, elders past and elders present. We have a responsibility to acknowledge the harm done and to work towards respect, recognition, and self-determination for all First Peoples. I'd like to invite Joella Warkill, a proud First Nations Yidinji and South Sea Islander young woman who was raised on Darumbal country in central Queensland, to do an acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Apurva. Hi everyone. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we are all zooming in from today and pay respects to the ancestors of those lands past and present. For me, that is the Turrbal and Yagara people here in Meanjin, now also known as Brisbane. I would also like to acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people zooming in today and pay respects to your ancestors, elders, and communities. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and women have been fighting the fight and holding space for women empowerment as Black women for many years, and remind us all that this space always needs to be intersectional and inclusive to fund any progress. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Sorry.
Sorry, Joella, keep going.
Yeah, okay. I'll now go on to perform my piece of poetry, Girls of the Globe. Before women of the world, there are girls of the globe. Girls of the globe need not wait to be accepted to become a woman of the world. Girls of the globe don't have time to waste, time to wait. They are busy carving images of tomorrows into the minds of the young today. Girls of the globe stand proudly on mountains of resistance against the patriarchy, asking only when, but not why, and how without ifs, masking our pretty and proper with a vision reminiscent of the one we know will be it. Laughing with those who have stood tall and fallen with wisdom and wit, casting the dreams of theirs into our speeches bit by bit. Girls of the globe become women of the world on their own 2 feet, when their past selves and their purpose finally meet. Catalysted by no one else but the women who came before you and me, surrendering to nothing but their own empowerment and feeling free, relinquishing the tired desire of what they tell us we are meant to be, and destroying the ideas of feminism where I would not meet eligibility. Girls of the globe will dismiss misogyny from the womb, then create a new movement the second they leave the maternity room. Today's girls of the globe are tomorrow's women of the world, ready and fitted with armor to take on the fight. Underestimated, maybe, inadequacy, not at all in sight. These are the girls who will conquer the battles that began before their time. They will stand, unafraid to speak up, know when to listen or when to kick up the dust, and reveal a revolution that says enough is enough. Thank you. And I'll hand back over to Apurva now. Thank you.
Thank you, Joella, for that moving acknowledgement of country and for those powerful words. I'll now cover a few housekeeping points to ensure this remains a productive and safe online space. I should also note that the AGM is being recorded and will be shared with members as part of our post-AGM wrap-up. To ensure the security of the AGM, please ensure that your display name matches the name you used to register for the event. Our team will be working through the attendees list, and if we're unable to match your display name to a registered name for the event, we'll need to remove you from the event. For those unfamiliar with Zoom, the AGM format this year is delivered as webinar. To ensure the smooth flow of the meeting, all attendees will be muted until we open for Q&A. If you would like to submit a question before then, please use the chat functions and these will be reviewed by the YWCA team. And just a friendly reminder that in line with our YWCA ethos, we collectively have a duty of care to provide a safe environment at this meeting. Our president will be ensuring that this is a safe and respectful space for all involved. Thank you. So today we have a full agenda for this year's AGM, and you'll be hearing from a number of people. Our president, Helen Conway, will be giving an address. After this, we'll hear from Emma McCarthy, who will briefly talk to us about World YWCA and the movement. And then we'll hear from YWCA CEO, Michelle Phillips, who will take us through an operational and financial update. Formal business will follow, and then we'll have time for questions, which will be moderated by our Senior Manager, Marketing and Communications, Anastasia Simmons. You'll no doubt have questions throughout, and you can post these to the Zoom chat for Anastasia to facilitate at the end. We've reserved time at the end for live questions from members and ask that you please raise your virtual hand, which can be found in the reactions, and turn on your microphone so that we can hear you and your camera if you wish to be seen on screen. All participant microphones will be muted until this time to ensure a smooth flow and transition. But again, a reminder that you can submit your questions via the chat. Questions that we haven't addressed in the presentation or in the Q&A session will be responded to post-AGM. Once again, this year we have the opportunity for our members to come together socially at the end of the formal AGM. Our member mingle, hosted by Board Director Keishi Tilak Ramesh, and entertainment provided by the talented cabaret queen, Tash York, will be your chance to catch up with other members, so please stick around if you can. The member mingle will be taking place in a meeting environment where our members can turn on their screens and microphones to join in the fun. The link to the member mingle has been shared in the chat functionality and emailed to all attendees ahead of the meeting, and we'll post a link again at the conclusion of the AGM. As a movement, we're grateful for the leadership and guidance of our president and vice presidents, and we will continue to build on the incredible work that we've been doing in Australia for more than 140 years. Molly George is the Vice President of YWCA Australia. Molly is a young woman who has been a non-executive director of YWCA since 2019 and was appointed to the role of Vice President in 2021. Helen Conway is the President of YWCA Australia and was appointed to the role in 2020. I will now hand over to YWCA Australia President Helen Conway.
Well, thanks very much, Apurva, and hello, everybody. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we're meeting today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'm coming to you today from Gadigal land. It's a great pleasure to be here at our 5th AGM since the national merger, and my 3rd actually as president. And what a seismic 3 years it's been. 3 years where we've reimagined our organisation and our pathway forward with Yes 2026. 3 years where we've continued to stand up and push forward despite the additional challenges we've faced. 3 years where across Australia, women refused to remain out of sight and out of mind. 3 years where women's voices reverberated, calling for an end to gender-based violence in this country. 3 years where the pandemic laid bare the realities of gender inequity in this country, in our homes, in our livelihoods, and in our communities. 3 years where progress was not made in leaps or bounds, but in the smallest of steps. But 3 years where hope began to spring, I think. Hope that change was at long last on the horizon. Hope that in many ways started with the voices of young women. It's an honour to be serving as your president and to stand alongside our members as we add our stories to the long and proud history of this movement. As I look ahead, it is with hope. Hope for the role of the Y, our Y, can play in shaping a brighter and more equitable future for women and gender diverse people in Australia, playing our part in the change that's afoot. Right now, we're in the midst of a housing crisis where too many women are forced to make a choice between putting food on the table or paying their rent. The rising cost of living continues to put immense pressure on those on low incomes with little relief in sight. And we know the ultimate cost of these challenges, that people are remaining in unsuitable or unsafe homes and violent situations simply because there's nowhere for them to go. As a movement, we have a very big role to play here. We must continue to move the dial in a substantial way on the housing crisis that women are facing. We must build clear and accessible pathways for young women with lived experience to not just speak, but be heard. Voices that can bring hope, that can drive systemic change that's desperately needed. And we must provide the most effective referral pathways, case management, and support to our clients and residents. By doing this together, we can bring about meaningful change for young women and women. Thank you to all who've been on this journey with us during the last year. I look forward to walking alongside you in the years ahead. We know of 4 Y women who have sadly passed away this last year. Firstly, Jill Allen. Jill was the executive director of YWCA Albury-Wodonga for 9 years, overseeing 11 different projects and conducting 100 training programs. Jill was in her element, enabling young women as a teacher, a mentor, an advisor, and a friend. Reverend Deacon Betty Matthews. Betty worked for YWCA in Perth for 13 years, 10 years as its executive officer, pioneering many services to benefit young women, the Big Sister program, emergency housing for single women, and step family support, as well as serving on the board of the West Australian Council of Social Services and the Youth Affairs Council. Heather Crosby, OAM. Heather began her association with YWCA in 1960. She was president and executive director of the Adelaide YWCA and a member of the National Council and the World Executive. And finally, life member Margaret Smith. Marg was a previous YWCA Adelaide president, a long-time member of the Y, and she attended the World Council meeting in Phoenix in 1987. I'd like to acknowledge the significant contribution that each of Jill, Betty, Heather, and Marg made to the YWC movement. Our thoughts are with their families and friends, and may they rest in power. YWCA is very fortunate to be supported by the volunteer efforts of people who are passionate about their communities and young women's leadership. Louise Quinn is one such woman who was recognised in the 2022 Australia Day Honours List for her service to the community through a range of roles, including with the YWCA. Louise first became involved with the YWCA Queensland in the 1970s and continues to be a proud life member of YWCA Australia. When asked how she felt about this honour, Louise said, "I'm just one of the many outstanding women who have been part of YWCA's history. They all deserve recognition, and that's a sentiment I share." Congratulations to Louise on her contribution to the YWCA movement and her dedication to the wider community. YWCA Australia's Life Membership Award acknowledges a member's outstanding and distinctive contribution to our work in advancing gender equity. Life Membership recognises those members whose contribution to the YWCA has had significant impact on the organisation, the community, and the movement. The award is for life, and each new YWCA Life member is awarded a commemorative pin designed by young artist Amy Blue. This year, the Life Member Selection Committee selected one new Life member whose journey with the YWCA has spanned decades. Please join me in congratulating and welcoming Mary Chow from New South Wales as YWCA's newest Life member. Mary has made a significant contribution to the YWCA movement in a personal and professional capacity. And she was a dedicated Y team member for over 35 years. The quote you see on your screen from Mary shows her passion for and her belief in our vision of a future where gender equality is a reality. It's great to recognise Mary's contribution towards that vision today. Our Common Board came into effect on the 1st of June 2020 and has since delivered great synergy and communications across our three legal entities, YWCA Australia, YWCA National Housing, and YWCA Housing. This year, we welcomed two new board directors elected by members, and I'm thrilled to announce these new board members are Rebecca Blurton from New South Wales and Carolyn Lambert from Victoria. I'd also like to acknowledge our departing board members, Georgina Morford and Yasmin Poole. Thank you to you both for your considerable contribution to the Y. We wish you all the very best and look forward to staying in touch. Profiles of our current and our new board members can be found on our website from tomorrow. YWCA Australia is committed to investing in young women's development and providing them with pathways to leadership positions through our board traineeship program. This includes training, mentoring, and real-world board experience. The program is now in its third year, and this year we welcome Margarita Dal Okovacaro and Titi Malhotra as our new trainees. I'd like to thank last year's participants, Claire Bertoli and Laura Burford, for their contribution, time, and dedication to the YWCA board. And I wish them all the very best in their board director careers. Finally, our Young Women's Council. The council was established in 2018, and since then, we've been very fortunate to see the bright minds of Australia's young people in action. We've put the council on hold for a year while we redesign their role to be more effective in the governance of the Y and in the execution of our new strategy. We look forward to continuing to provide a meaningful and positive opportunity for council members and aligning their work to our advocacy priorities. We know young women and gender diverse people's voices are a powerful driver for change, and their involvement in our advocacy work will support our long-term outcomes. That is, ensuring young women and women experience greater safety, security, and well-being in their homes. We look forward to opening expressions of interest for the Young Women's Council in April 2023. We'll now be joined by Emma McCarthy, Worldwide Treasurer, who will update us on the worldwide priorities. Over to you, Emma.
Thanks, Helen. Just quick sound check. You can hear me okay?
Loud and clear, Emma.
Thank you. I'd just like to begin also by acknowledging the traditional elders here. I'm on Ngunnawal land today, and I just want to pay my respects as well to elders past, present and emerging. So I'm really pleased to be giving you an update for World YWCA, and I'm excited about World Council, and I'm hoping at the end of this few minutes you'll be excited about World Council as well. So for those who've never attended a World Council, we do this every 4 years, and the business of the World Council is it's not dictated, but it's outlined in the constitution of the World YWCA. We do the regular administrative things, accepting minutes and reports from the General Secretary, from myself as Treasurer, and we talk other policies and guidelines. We conduct elections for World Board and for committees, and you can read more about the admin of that in the World YWCA Constitution. So that's the admin of it, but what else? It provides opportunities for mutual learning and exchange between member associations. And I think for anyone who's been before, that's the most exciting thing. We do membership changes, affiliation, suspension and disaffiliation. And then there's also amendments to the Constitution, resolution and calls to action. And the call to council will be released in the next 2 weeks. So how will World Council 23 be held? Well, in the new world we live in, it is going to be virtual for all participants. There will be pre-assemblies providing space for regional and thematic discussions. There'll be coordination, interaction, learning and training, and there'll be an orientation session. There'll be dialogues and town hall sessions with space for global socialisation, conversation and interaction. And there'll be sessions for candidates for board and committee positions. There'll be plenary sessions with everyone. There'll be regional meetings with people from around our region. There'll be worship and spiritual reflections, and there'll be a global digital village. We want to make this an experience that, whilst it may not be quite as fabulous as it has been in person in the past, still an amazing experience for all of the attendees. So how can you participate? YWCA Australia is entitled to a voting delegation of 6 members, at least 2 of whom must be aged under 31, and the President and General Secretary lead the delegation. There's no limit to the number of observers. And you can consider nominating for a board or nominations committee position, and the call for nominations will come with the call to council. So I've just been on the board. This is my 7th year on the World Board, so 2 terms in a row, and I'll be terming off this time next year at World Council 23. So there are opportunities, and I'm sure if you spoke to anyone who's ever taken that opportunity to be part of the World Board, it is an opportunity like no other. And I'd really encourage you to think about what that could bring you, the women around the world you could meet, the experiences you could have, and really seeing the YWCA globally. 109 associations around the world, getting to know your sisters from around the world. And I can't say enough great things about it, but also a fair bit of work. So you've got to be prepared to get into the governance of a global charity. So very interesting, very rewarding, very challenging. So at World Council, there is the opportunity to connect with particularly our Pacific sisters, and there'll be a special social network that's coming out soon, and there'll be training on that before we start. So that's council. I also wanted to quickly talk about the Rise Up Guide for Young Women's Transformative Leadership. And some of you may have heard about the Rise Up Guide, particularly if you are a subscriber. And I know we've got Jade Brady here, so hopefully I don't get any of this wrong, Jade. But what is Rise Up Guide? It's a comprehensive guide for establishing and engaging in a leadership training program, and it's aimed to build transformative leadership skills among young women. Rise Up empowers young women to be decision makers with owners of their own rights and future. And it's supported with a multi-year grant from the Australian government. It's delivered throughout the Asia Pacific region. It was co-created by and for young women, and the model was designed to intentionally be adaptable and scalable to local realities. The guide includes powerful examples, critical information about leadership, global context, helpful notes for facilitators, and information about relevant social issues and more. So how does it work? It's led by YWCAs in the region. Or can we just go back one, please? Thanks. It aims to ensure that young women are confident leaders who create safe spaces and networks and inspire young women to build an inclusive society empowered by intergenerational leadership. With the leadership of World YWCA, Rise Up builds self-esteem and confidence of young women to ensure that young women, with the support from families, peers, and allies, are part of the global women's rights movement, leading organisations to practice leadership and influence policy advocacy. So there are links, and I don't know whether these slides go out afterwards, but perhaps they do. You can find out more, but you can also find out more by visiting the World YWCA website. You can read a powerful booklet of stories from alumni of Rise Up, and I really encourage you to learn more about the program if you have not. Just moving on now, I just wanted to just put a couple of tasters here for how you can engage with the World YWCA. You can register for the intranet, you can subscribe to newsletters, and you can get involved by following us, and you can be part of the Leaders WhatsApp group if that's your preferred method. I just wanted to finish with a quote from one of our sisters who's from Armenia. And she says, the common denominator among all YWCA national and local chapters is the daily battle to fight the tides of adversity experienced by women, young women and girls. The YWCA strives to give each and every young woman and girl the opportunity to explore her life, both past and the imagined future. So what a great organisation we're all part of. And I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you virtually at World YWCA Council this time next year. And so thank you very much for the opportunity to present today. And I'll be passing back to Michelle.
Thanks so much, Emma. I'm just going to do a quick sound check, Stasia. Can everyone hear me and see me?
We can hear you and see you.
Wonderful. Emma, thank you. And it's really great for us to stay connected with Y Global Work. I actually got a reminder today on Google Photos of our time at the last World Council in Johannesburg, so I thought that was quite timely on AGM Day. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that I'm on, and that is the Gubbi Gubbi lands of the Sunshine Coast. Today, I'm going to be providing an update on our strategy, operations and financial performance for the year ending 30 June 2022. I'm going to start off with the YWCA Evolve strategy, and it's better known as YES 2026. This is our 5-year strategy under which we've made young women's leadership and women's housing our priority for gender equity in Australia. During my operational update, I'll be sharing how we've been implementing this strategy and progressing our long-term outcomes. Young women and women experience increased wellbeing, safety and security in their homes, and young women lead policy and systems change for effective housing pathways and social support. We're grateful to all our members, team members and stakeholders who have been involved in and supported the development of YES 2026. It was a really good process and I'm glad that we've got a great strategy coming out of it. And if you'd like more information, please feel free to go to our website. Under YES 2026, we've reimagined our membership infrastructure so our members can drive and support our social change agenda. To be clear, there are no changes in the membership categories in our constitution. This is really about membership engagement. We are grateful to the member design squad, and I believe we've got one member on the call today, Jane Alva, who contributed to the development of this infrastructure. It was a robust process with solid discussions and a joint agreement on the way forward. A key outcome was actually having a shared purpose. How do we collaborate together for the benefit of our beneficiaries, the people we serve? Members join the Y because they are passionate about the Y's purpose and want to drive social change. So our new infrastructure will make it easier for members to contribute through 3 member communities: digital activists, interlinked and stay connected. In September, we held member sessions to update you on the changes, and I'll be looking forward to working with you from mid next year to implement our member communities. So watch this space for further updates. So we have 4,616 amazing members and 588 new members were in FY 2022. The majority of our new members are young women, and we look forward to seeing this continue to grow once we build our new member communities and progress YES 2026. At 30th of June, we had 269 valued team members with around 87% female, of which young women make up 10%. I'd like to acknowledge the continued commitment and contribution of our team members. I know some are attending this AGM today. They provide invaluable support to people and our communities we serve. I'm grateful for their passion for our purpose. They keep our clients and residents front and centre in everything that we do, and that's important. Our national presence. We have a really strong national presence of community programs, community housing and advocacy. And here you can see the depth and breadth of our operations across Australia. We do remain committed to growth across regional areas. However, the locations may be different than they were before. We remain committed to team members being based across Australia. For local roles, we recruit the best person for that specific location based on the service needs. For the national support roles, we select the best person for the role, considering a wide range of locations. This year, YWCA submitted our Reconciliation Action Plan, our RAP. It's an important step to ensuring intersectional feminism is our culture in action. We're at the very start of our reconciliation journey, and we believe that this is a crucial step towards Y's vision of a future where gender equality is a reality, because gender equality cannot be achieved without First Nations justice. I'd like to thank the RAP Working Group for all their efforts in getting us to this point. We are also very grateful for the leadership and support of Reconciliation Australia and look forward to meeting their expectations of us, contributing to their vision of a just, equitable and reconciled Australia. To go through some quick operational highlights, each of these results represent a step towards our long-term outcomes. In the last year, the team has delivered 28 community programs nationally, supported close to 6,000 clients and provided over 64,000 hours of case management support. We have 418 tenancy, housed 822 residents and provided over 120 nights of safe and affordable accommodation. And we did progress our advocacy agenda, delivering 5 key government submissions. So some community program highlights. So our YWCA's community programs, we still operate in Northern Territory, Western Australia, Victoria, South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland. And some of these are the highlights I'd love to go through. So we secured additional funding for the Northern Territory's Keeping Women Safe in Their Homes program. This means we can provide more women and their families with security upgrades and peace of mind to stay safely in their own home of choice. We received funding to deliver a women's housing support program in Victoria, which will support women in the Lake House moving into sustainable long-term accommodation. We are pleased to have secured a 4-year contract to deliver a Youth Frontiers program in New South Wales. This is a reimagined program, connects young people who've come in contact with the youth justice and child protection system that are at increased risk of housing insecurity with a supportive mentor. We launched our Y Connect program in Toowoomba, and this provides women with disability and professional development and leadership opportunities. We secured a 3-year contract to deliver a new program, and it's called Amplifying Voices in the Northern Territory. This program will engage young women and gender diverse people to exercise their lived experience of domestic, family and sexual violence, including homelessness and housing risk. In leading advocacy and influencing system reforms, it's a really important step towards YES 2026 long-term outcomes. And I have to say, the amazing team in Toowoomba for the Y Ability have delivered over 22,000 hours of support. So thinking about some case studies, it's really important for us that we hear through our clients. And so at the centre of the community programs are the people that we support. So here's a quote from a letter we received from a client of our Pathways to Independence program in Sydney. The program is achieving positive outcomes and helping clients break the cycle of homelessness, with 84% of the clients in sustainable accommodation post-referral. Our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Women's Leadership Program is run by and for First Nations women. It was reimagined this year to give First Nations young women with lived experience of homelessness and housing risk pathways to have a say on matters that affect their daily lives. As Lakeisha says, it's a deadly program helping young people be heard. We have a strong pipeline of funding to support and continued operations and growth. We've got $3 million secured for the current financial year and $14.7 million for future years. We are finding contracts are being rolled over for shorter term commitments rather than long-term funding, but let's see how this practice evolves as we get through more of COVID. We know housing is a feminist issue. Our research and experience confirm that the risk factors of housing insecurity are gendered and disproportionately negatively impact women, who make up almost 2/3 of the people accessing housing and homelessness services. We are proud that our community housing footprint continues to grow. We currently own and manage 418 tenancies nationally, which is made up of transitional, social and affordable housing. The majority of our tenants are older women and women-led families. Women make up 89% of the tenants. And we've had some great highlights throughout the year. We've increased our tenancies across Victoria and Queensland. We secured a general lease for 14 units of affordable housing for women and women-led families in Maribyrnong, Victoria. We brought an additional 19 tenancies online at the Lake House in Melbourne, which provides safe transitional housing to older women experienced or at risk of homelessness. We brought an additional 5 tenancies online at our Mary Street property in Toowoomba, and this housing provides vital support to women experiencing family and domestic violence. We also secured a tenancy management agreement with the Queensland Government, which will grow our footprint in this state. So we thought it was only fitting that we had a case study from Maribyrnong about affordable housing. This shows what a difference a safe and secure place to call home makes to our tenants, many who have experienced family and domestic violence. Just over 1/3 of our Maribyrnong residents are young women, often with children. And in the last 12 months, we've held 14 tenants, provided over 3,500 nights of safe and secure accommodation. As this case study demonstrates, once someone is in a safe and secure home, they can make plans for the future. Our housing growth. Look, I'm excited to say we currently have 7 housing development projects secured with $51 million that will deliver 123 new tenancies by 2026. And this includes our Hutt Street Adelaide development project. We've been successful in securing $26.6 million capital grant funding on the Victoria Big Build regional round and the Queensland Housing Investment Growth Initiative. We've also secured a $5 million interest-free loan for Hutt Street. YWCA will contribute $19.4 million towards these projects. This is a significant and an exciting step in delivering YES 2026 and building on the long-term sustainability of the Y. Advocacy is and will always be a critical part of YES 2026 and important to the Y movement. In July 2021, the Equity Economics in Everybody's Home released the Nowhere to Go report, which was co-funded by us. This report demonstrated an urgent need for an additional 16,800 social housing units so women and children have somewhere to go when they're forced to leave domestic and family violence situations. And we certainly stand ready to play our part in delivering that housing. We made 5 key government submissions, including the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children, the Queensland Women's Strategy, and the New South Wales Regional Housing Task Force. I've recently attended the Queensland Housing Summit and will also participate in a federal government consultation roundtable next week for housing with gender equality. When housing for women's safety was not included on the agenda for the 2021 National Summit on Women's Safety, we took action by launching the Tradies for Women's Safety campaign. The campaign called on the construction industry to show their support for survivors of violence and call for housing to be considered a critical feature of the Women's Safety Summit. We continue to campaign for the International 16 Days of Activism to End Gender-Based Violence, and our next campaign will actually launch on the 25th of November. So please have a look at that one. Last year, we did 394 individuals signed up onto an open letter, which was also shared with 26 other organisations and individuals. For International Women's Day, we released a toolkit that our members and supporters could use to start the conversation about equality and women's safety. We provide virtual opportunities for members and also our cyber feminist group to engage with the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, and we'll expand these opportunities into 2023. The Y continues to support the Equality Rights Alliance and who are making great progress on gender-based budgeting. We will have seen that the federal government has really announced some positive first steps tackling the crises that we face in women's housing and safety. We look forward to progressing our advocacy agenda through the opportunities that will arise through the National Housing Accord, the National Housing and Homelessness Plan, and the National Plan to End Violence Against Women. Our Song Hotel, and as you know, the occupancy historically has been about 90%. I must say, FY22, we still did have the impacts of COVID, but from July this year, we've had really strong occupancy. So we've been quite happy and heartened to actually see that. The industry prediction is that domestic tourism will recovery is forecast to be back to the 2019 levels by next year, and international tourism recovery to 2019 levels by 2024. So we're certainly on the right track and we are seeing the difference. We have commenced a second stage of redevelopment in the Song Hotel, which will bring our hotel to a 4-star rating with 156 en-suite rooms. So the redevelopment focus on floors 5 to 8 and will remove all the shared bathrooms. This long-term will generate stronger returns for us to reinvest back into our purpose. So I'm just going to do a big shout out to the Song Hotel. So if you're traveling to Sydney, the Song Hotel are ready to welcome you. And for those members based in Sydney, the Song Hotel's reopened. So drop in and say hi. We've got a new chef with a fantastic new menu. Before I move to the financial report, I really just want to say a huge thanks. Thanks to our life members, team members around the country, and particularly the executive team, the directors, volunteers, supporters, and all our partners for your contributions over the last year. It's been very much appreciated. It's a lot of work, but we all do it because we all love it. I'd also like to thank our affiliates, Hunter and Canberra, and I believe Francis is on the line tonight. So we maintain a good working relationship with aligned values. So I'm going to move to our financial report. So our financial report will cover our consolidated financial position. Our auditor, Gary Sherwood from RSM, is also present for any questions that our members may have when we open up the Q&A session later. So I'm going to start with revenue, costs and deficit. So we recorded 30.88 million in revenue. Thanks, Asia. I'll just get the slide here. This includes 23 million from operating activities, 3.4 million gain on sale of Song Hotel Redfern, 2.3 million gain on the valuation of property assets. We also received $615,000 for JobSaver subsidy, and we received 1.1 million legal cost reimbursement from the OSR New South Wales in relation to the stamp duty. Our operating costs were maintained at 25.81 million. This results in a 5.07 million surplus before depreciation. So when we're looking at our revenue from our operating activities, it was slightly lower last year by 4.4%. Community programs contribute 13.3 million towards the operating revenue. Housing, the NDIS and Song performance were almost similar to that of last year. When looking at our total comprehensive our total comprehensive income for the year was 38,900, which is 103% improvement from last year. Our surplus for depreciation of 5.07 million is reduced to 38,900 after deducting 2.4 million for depreciation and amortization expense and 2.62 million decrease in market value of financial investments. Both of these are non-cash items. So if we look at our consolidated financial position, our net assets equity position has not really changed from last year, and that is due to the $38,900 comprehensive income. Total asset positions compared to the total liability position remains really strong and healthy. I'm going to go through the increase in fair value of the group assets. I've just picked out two areas I think I'd like to cover in a bit more detail. That is this one and also tied funds. So as noted above, the net value of our property assets has increased by about 2.5 million in 2022. And that's about a 3.2% increase overall. And this was, sorry, 1 minute. This represents a fair value uplift of our residential and non-commercial properties. Investment properties, including Song Hotel, were not valued in 2022. As per our policy, they are not due to be done until 2023. Our tied funds include bequests, are also invested in financial assets that are managed by JB Were. Like other investments, our tied funds also experience a decline in market value by about 6.4%. The market value of our tied funds portfolio at the end of FY22 was 1.88 million. In FY23, we are expecting to have met conditions attached to a number of these tied funds as per the obligations. As such, you will see this balance reduce over time. In closing, I just want to thank everyone for their support over the last year. We are fully focused on delivering Yes 2026, and we'll continually adjust to the market conditions. We are boldly moving forward with a common purpose, and with your support, we will serve the needs of young women and diverse people. Together we stay strong, so thank you. I'm now going to hand you back to Helen for formal business.
Well, thanks very much, Michelle. We only have one item of formal business, and that's to receive and consider the financial report of the company and the reports of the directors and the auditor for the financial year ended 30 June 2022. And these financial reports have previously been made available to members. So we'll soon welcome questions on these financial statements, and that, as I say, includes questions to the auditor. And then after any financial statement questions, we can move to general questions. Now, as a reminder, just raise your virtual hand if you'd like to ask a question. You can find that in reactions on your screen, and turn your microphone on if you want to be heard. And of course, if your camera is on, we will be able to see you. So I'll now hand over to Anastasia, who'll be monitoring the Q&A session, where Michelle and our auditor and myself would be very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks, Stasia.
Thank you, Helen. So for those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Anastasia Simmons, Senior Manager, Marketing and Communications. And as Helen said, I'll be moderating tonight's Q&A. So this is really your opportunity to ask questions about the performance and activities of the Y over the last 12 months. So we've got a couple of ways that you can submit your questions, and I can see a few of you have already done that so far. We did receive one question in advance of tonight's meeting, which we'll start with. But the other ways that you can engage is through the Q&A functionality that you can find at the bottom of your screen. You can also post it directly in the chat if you can't find the Q&A functionality. And if you would like to ask a question live, if you go to reactions, which is available at the bottom of your screen, and select raise hand, we will switch your microphone on once we get to your question. So just a friendly reminder that in line with our worldwide ethos, we've got a collective duty of care to provide a safe environment at the meeting. So of course, we'll be making sure that safety and respect occurs in this space. So thanks, everyone. And so we are delighted to have Gary Sherwood from RSM here with us tonight. So we might just start by checking if there are any questions for the auditor this evening. I'm having a look at our Q&A and also in our chat. And I can confirm at this stage, we do not have any questions for the auditor. So we thank you, Gary, for joining us this evening, and of course for all of your fabulous hard work and support of YWCA. So what we now have an opportunity. Thanks, Gary. So what we now have an opportunity to do is to open the floor to more general questions. And so, as I said, I'm going to start by opening with a question that we received from member Rosalind Dundas in advance of tonight's meeting. And the question was, could you please outline how the board is working to uphold the promise of the merger, and in particular, the hope underpinning the merger that YWCA Australia would be truly national? How is the strategy being taken forward to ensure regional connection is built and maintained, including in places like Perth and Albury-Wodonga and Tasmania, with programs beyond Encore? To answer this question, Helen, I might pass over to you.
Great, thanks, Stasia. I think it's fair to say that, consistent with the underpinning objectives of the merger, the board's overarching commitment is for impact and sustainability. Now, mergers are very difficult to bed down in the best of times, but of course, we now find ourselves in a very different world, having experienced COVID over the last few years. And as you would appreciate, COVID had a very significant impact, I think, as we said at last year's AGM, on the Y. As you'd appreciate, with the impact of COVID, we had to close the hotel. We had to close Song Hotel for a period, and we had very reduced occupancy at the hotel when we were able to open it. So that has a very big impact on us financially. So when this occurred, and early on in the COVID period, we realized that we had to reimagine our strategy. We had to be very quick in determining what the impact of this was, and work out what our strategy would be going forward in the light of the challenges that we were facing. So I think, as we said last year, we undertook a review of our strategy. It was very challenging. We had to do it all online because of COVID. As you know, after many deliberations and difficult discussions and difficult decisions, we landed on our new strategy, which you're very familiar with now, our YES 2026 strategy. Now, that strategy means that we are very, very focused. We've reduced our focus. We're now focusing very strongly on housing, homelessness and related services. So we have to rebuild the why and overcome our financial impact of COVID. We were very determined not to erode the balance sheet. The balance sheet represents the efforts of many, many women over many, many years. And we wanted to make sure that we put the organisation in a position where we could build on that balance sheet and then grow through our new strategy to provide even more support to women, young women and older women and gender diverse people. So as we grow under our YES 2026 strategy, our locations will change as will our service offering. And the board and the management are very, very committed to regional locations. And as you'll see, in fact, as Michelle's already alluded to in her address, we've had significant regional success in the Queensland and Victorian housing project processes. We have to make sure that what we do is financially viable, and we are very keen and we trawl the environment for any opportunities that are available to us that we can undertake, and certainly with financial prudence. And we are looking Australia-wide. We'll do what we can Australia-wide. We are very committed to regional Australia. There aren't a lot of operators in regional Australia. There's a great need in regional Australia, as we know. So as we say, we trawl the environment for the opportunities. We seize those opportunities that are able to be seized given our capability and our capacity, and we will continue to do that consistent with the objectives of the merger. But I might hand over to you, Michelle. You might want to provide a little more detail. I know you alluded to it in your presentation, but you may want to provide a little more detail, perhaps around the Victorian and the Queensland projects.
Yeah, and specific locations as well. So I'd around Albury-Wodonga. So Albury-Wodonga, we've just been successful under the Victorian Big Build regional round to have housing there. So that is extremely recent. In relation to Perth, we are looking at an opportunity similar to the Lake House in Victoria, and so that is really focused on transitional housing for women, so they can get into long-term housing. Broken Hill, we did have funding. However, we weren't actually able to find a team member to be able to deliver the program. So we actually had to stop, and we tried for quite a while. And we also linked in with the local action group for that. We are expanding in Townsville, Toowoomba and Bendigo within housing. So there is movement. And I think the key one is it won't always necessarily be in the same locations that we were before. But we do look at every opportunity. So we have our grants and tenders meetings every week where we go through all the opportunities that we can possibly look at. So we're certainly not just sitting back hoping it happens. We're looking at it proactively as well. So Roz, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Michelle. We have a question from Sienna Aguilar. What are Tide funds invested in? And for this one, I might turn to you, Michelle.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. Yeah, it's so Tide funds with JB Weir. So they're actually we kind of work out on a balanced fund. So there'll be a mix of fixed term bonds and shares, and it's long-term balanced growth financial instruments is what we look at for that.
Thank you, Michelle. We do have a question from Jan, which is, has the balance sheet been eroded through the sale of the hotel in Redfern?
No, it's actually all the proceeds from the song Redfern are currently invested in the financial investments. So they stand firm in there, and we will be using those as a mix to renovate Song Hotel, which will then increase its value, and also within our housing projects, which will then that value will also then be reflected on the balance sheet.
Our next question comes from Claire Treadgold, who reflects that they heard about the YWCA Encore program at a rural health conference, and they asked, is is this considered a community program?
Yes, Encore is considered a community program.
Thanks so much for that, Michelle. We're just going to have a check to make sure that there's no other questions filtering through from the audience at this stage. I'm not seeing anything on the live chat or in the Q&A box. And we're not seeing reactions from people regarding a live question from the floor. I'll just triple check that that's not the case. Can't see any hands raised at this stage. It looks like we've got one more question that's come through on the Q&A. This is a question from Kathy Moore. Kathy Moore asks, are there any more property sales?
Yes, we will be selling property and we'll be looking to invest that into housing. So the property that we'll be highlighting is what we're calling non-core assets at this point in time. So, for example, it will be the Stanley Street property in Brisbane. It's the Perth property, which was an office. So we're looking at divesting out of our offices and investments, and as they're non-core assets for us, and we'll be investing that into housing.
We have a question from Jan on what is being done to bring the operating model into surplus.
Yeah, so Jan, that's a really good question because we did a lot of work with the NAB volunteers. We looked at 4 or 5 different operating models, and then the board and management selected the one that would work. So we are looking to be back into fully break even by FY25. And given the fact that we've secured a lot more capital funding in housing, we may even do that before that. But at the moment, it is FY25. So we're very confident that we'll achieve that. We're tracking as we should do. There was a huge amount of work that went into all those models, and NAB validated them as well.
We have another question. It's come through from Linda Polk. Linda asks, what is the likely impact of increased interest rate on loans?
We actually currently don't have any long-term loans, so our impact at the moment is negligible.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm just turning to the participant list again to see if anyone has raised their hands to ask a live question. From what I can see, there are no raised hands at this stage, and there are no additional questions in the Q&A or the chat. I'll just wait a couple more moments in case something filters through in the next few seconds. Okay, so that appears to be the end of our live question and answer. Thank you so much to everyone who participated in the Q&A tonight. It's always wonderful to see the democracy of our lovely movement and the views and passion from everyone here tonight. If you do have questions that come to mind following this event, we encourage you to please email them through to us. We will include our email addresses in the follow-up communication after tonight's event, but you can email them through to comms@ywca.org.au. And now that our Q&A has finished, I will now hand over to Apurva to close tonight's meeting.
Thanks, Anastasia. Thank you to all those who've attended and for your support, commitment and passion for our YWCA movement and gender equity. Thank you also for your considered questions and for ensuring that this is a safe and inclusive environment. As a final note, we will be circulating a post-AGM wrap-up in the coming weeks. For any questions that we did not have time to respond to today or that you think of at a later time, these will be addressed. I encourage you all to continue this dialogue and send any thoughts, feedback, or further questions to our company secretary, whose contact details have been circulated already from the AGM communications. This now concludes the 2022 YWCA Annual General Meeting. And for all those who would like, please stay on to join the Member Mingle hosted by Keishi Talak Ramesh with special guest Tash York. A reminder that the Member Mingle will be taking place in a meeting environment, and a link to join the Mingle has been posted in our chat. If you have any issues accessing the Mingle, you can re-enter the AGM webinar and one of our team members will help you access the event. Thank you all.